Hey guys, the Superhero Bibliophiles episode you're about to listen to was originally part of the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club, an exclusive Patreon subscriber show I used to run a few years back. So if you're confused by out-of-date references or comments about the Patreon show, that's why. Now, enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club. This is the exclusive Patreon podcast for subscribers of the Superhero Cinephiles Patreon page. So thank you, everyone, for subscribing. Thanks. Really appreciate your support. And we've got a new episode today with a new guest on this show. He'll be on the regular show in a few months. We already recorded that, but we record the movie episodes are way far in advance. And that is Ed Erdelac. Ed, how you doing today?
Hey, how you doing, Perry? I'm doing good.
I'm doing pretty good too. So before we jump too much into today's selection, why don't you you don't have to go through the whole thing because people will hear that when they hear you on the main show. But why don't you tell people just a little bit about yourself?
I'm the author of 15 novels. My pen name is Edward M. Erdelac. I was born in Chicago. I was born in Indiana, educated in Chicago, came out to Los Angeles to do screenwriting, and wound up doing books instead. I'm the author of the Macabre Rider series, and most recently, Rainbringers, or Neil Hurston Against the Lovecraftian Mythos, and John Conquer, which is cult detective stories in 1976 Harlem. He's the black private dick that's a hex machine with all the tricks.
Okay, cool.
So check that out.
And today we're talking about The Unknown Soldier. This is the Vertigo comic book series by, I just had the stuff up here.
Garth Ennis and Killian
Garth
Plunkett.
Ennis wrote it, yeah, and Killian Plunkett. Yes, thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah, and so this was just a 4-issue Vertigo series. It's kind of, from what I understand, it's kind of in continuity with the very first Unknown Soldier stuff from the 70s up until the early 80s. Pretty
Are you
much
familiar with that?
Just from what I've read on Wikipedia, so that's
Okay.
it. And but just Wikipedia says that it pretty much ignored the 88 to 89 12-issue limited series that was done by Jim Owsley, who's now known as Christopher Priest, and Phil Gascoigne. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. And that is a radically different version from the original one, where the Unknown Soldier is immortal and he's much more cynical about the U.S. And its place in the official DC continuity is apparently not very clear. But even still, if you don't have any familiarity with the Unknown Soldier, like, you could read this Vertigo series.
You don't need it. Yeah, you don't need it.
Yeah, they give you everything you need to know based on that. Before we dive too much, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, sorry. I actually wondered if, I the same thing. I knew Unknown Soldier as from ads, basically, of comics I read as a kid. I knew he was a part of, like, either Men at War or GI Combat or something, one of the DC war mags, Weird War maybe, I don't know, but he was the guy with the bandages on his faces. I always remembered that. But and I wondered if, like, maybe Booth or the General in here were, like, old characters that were being brought in. I don't even know. I have no idea.
That's a good question. Yeah, I'm not sure. I do know it. The first appearance was in Our Army at War, which was a Sergeant Rock story, and that was written by Robert Kanigher and drawn by Joe Kubert. And Kubert decided the character was interesting enough, so he started featuring him in Star Spangled War stories, and which eventually became Star Spangled War comics, and then it became basically it eventually turned into the Unknown Soldier comic book, and that lasted for about 64 issues, pretty much all taking place during World War II. He was a master of disguise, and but he had this physical deformity, so he kept his face covered in heavy bandages,
like Hush, basically. He looks like
very
Hush.
Much like Hush. Yeah, very much so. Or Lano from 100 Bullets.
Yeah.
So, did you read this series back when it was first coming out in the late 90s?
Yeah, I actually have the individual issues. I don't have the trade paperback. For me, it was the Tim Bradstreet covers that jumped out at me. There are these beautiful Tim Bradstreet covers. Tim Bradstreet did the interior illustrations for Vampire the Masquerade, the RPG back in the day and everything. It was real popular, and he just does these awesome kind of very textured drawings of characters, with usually with guns and shadows and like, the clothes are all like all the wrinkles are, clearly defined. The marble when there's one of him standing in front of the tomb of the unknown soldier, and you can see the etching and the marble and all the hardware he's carrying and stuff. And they're really cool covers, and that's what grabbed me at first. And I knew the unknown soldier, like I said, just from ads from war comics I read as a kid and everything. So like that's what drew me to it.
Were you familiar with Ennis, Ennis at all at the time when you started reading it?
From Preacher, okay. I knew Garth Ennis, yeah. So I knew, I was a fan of his writing and stuff, and but they didn't really. It was all the art for me, when I first grabbed this and everything, and then I opened it. I'm like, oh, Garth Ennis, cool. So, and this is one of the few. Sometimes you get cover artists and you don't get what they promise so much, and then you don't get what's on the inside and everything. But
right,
I really like Killian Plunkett's art on this in the interior, and the art is so well complemented by the colors. The coloring is by James Sinclair, and he just makes everything pop. There's scenes where he's looking up at like dark clouds, and there's the culmination of the cemetery at the end and the rain coming down. It's beautiful, beautiful art. I would love to see the black and white, but James Sinclair's colors are amazing. It's really a cool looking comic, really well done.
Yeah, agreed completely. Like I became aware of Bradstreet mostly from his Punisher covers, and also his covers on Hellblazer, which easily he's my definitive artist for both Frank Castle and John Constantine because of that.
Nobody can do a raincoat. Nobody can do a raincoat like
absolutely not. or that dead-eyed stare, right?
Nobody, like the 1,000-yard stare, the Shishugan.
Exactly. Yeah, he draws like it. It's telling that he usually draws Frank Castle with his eyes in shadow, because he looks like it's almost, you almost get a feeling like you're looking at a great white shark when you look at his covers of Frank Castle.
Yeah, and those kind of pouts. The characters always kind of have these downturned mouths in their shadow. That's kind of pout I really like.
Absolutely, yeah. And you're right. Like most of the time when you see a Bradstreet cover, the art inside is very different.
Yeah, you're not getting Tim Bradstreet usually, but
right. I mean, even thinking of, and that's not necessarily dissing the art. Like even thinking about a lot of the Punisher stuff he did, right? In a lot of those books, Steve Dillon was the interior artist on. Dillon's amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely not what you'd expect from those covers.
Yeah. So this is kind of a good teaser. Like I really like Killian Plunkett's art in this. It's cool. It's got a little bit of a I mentioned, I think before on the other podcast we did the Nam comic from the 80s and stuff, and there was when those first started, I'm trying to remember the name of the artist, but he would draw gear and stuff so thick and like so awesomely like detailed and realistic, and then the characters' faces were a little bit cartoony, and there's a little bit of that here in Killian Plunkett's art, I think. Like the characters are just a little bit, the faces are a little bit stylized, but all the gear and all the backgrounds and everything are very realistic looking. And I gotta praise the colors again. It just looked cool.
Yeah. So the original artist on the Nam comics was Michael Golden.
Michael Golden, that was it. Yeah.
And I remember, reading recently.
Like just gear and like M16s and all the towels around their necks and the helmets and the playing cards and the helmets. Everything was so detailed, and then the faces looked like almost Archie-esque, like a little bit undetailed and the big eyes and very kind of stylized and everything. And that kind of reminds me of this and everything.
Yeah, and you're right on the artwork here in Unknown Soldier. Like it's got this very gritty, almost visceral feel, and it is very much complemented by those Bradstreet covers. Like the book it's the perfect art style for this story that Ennis is telling. And let's talk a little bit about that story then, because this story is, it's called The Unknown Soldier, but he's very much like almost like a supporting character in it. Like mostly it focuses on a CIA operative named William Clyde, and
yeah.
he's going through and he's piecing together the history of the unknown soldier, because he starts getting these random names popping up on a list related to his current assignment. No one knows why.
Which are mostly Simpsons names. For some reason, they're all Simpson characters' names.
Yeah.
Terwilliger and like the principal, I can't remember his name. Like, yeah, they're all their names and stuff.
Right, yeah. And so
joke,
he's going through and investigating them, and they all have pieces of little information they have about the unknown soldier. And what we find out is that it's like it's really interesting how this story progresses, because you see it at the start, and the unknown soldier at the beginning, when he has that first story with the guy who's into Chow, and these
Dachau, yeah. That's a great scene. I mean, the first guy on his list is a guy with Alzheimer's in a retirement community, and he says, this other agent came and talked to me, and what did you talk about? We talked about the soldier. And he's like, what's the soldier? And he's just kind of idly curious, and he tells him the story about the liberation of Dachau, and how this guy pulled up in a Jeep with bandages all over his face, and there's this great panel of him like just infuriated and like pointing at all these, like gesturing to all these like cordwood stacks of dead Jewish bodies, emaciated and just spread across this concentration camp. And he's like, look what our enemy has done. And he sees the German like soldiers, the guards, and the guard says something like in English, like just following orders or something, and he snatches up the guy who's telling the story. He snatches that guy's machine gun and just guns all these guards down. And he has this great kind of short soliloquy about like, the world has to know that if this is the enemy and this is what they're capable of, then if the enemies of America can do this, then anything America does is absolutely right to stop this and stuff.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's such a brilliant indictment, and in such a very compressed fashion, right? Like 4 issues, it goes by really quick. I think I read this in one night, all 4 of them. And I'd never read this before. Obviously I'm familiar with Ennis's work. I think originally through Punisher, and then later on picked up Preacher, The Boys, and all that kind of stuff. And he's a really interesting writer, because he does these things dealing with these concepts of like hypermasculinity and
Americanism. He's
Americanism. He's Irish. Yeah.
And but he does it like he loves America. He does seem to really love America. He's a bit of an America, file, but he also has that removal where he can stand by and look at, like, I love this about America. I love, like, the preacher talks to the ghost of the Duke all the time and stuff. And yet he can also point out the flaws, because he can step back and say, I love America, but look at what they do, look at what they do here and stuff.
Have you read his Punisher Max stuff?
Is that the one where I feel like I have? Is that the one that kind of like he's visited by a kind of spirit or something at one point or something?
I don't think that's it,
like
but
vengeance spirit or something. I forget.
Oh, that's kind of that's in Bourne. I think that's in Bourne, the one that was set in Vietnam. Yes. There was that. But so when he came on to Marvel and he started doing the Punisher, him and Steve Dillon, they did first the 12-issue limited series, and then it ended up being an ongoing series that lasted for 30-some issues. And the thing that Ennis didn't like about it was that he had to play in the Marvel universe, right? He didn't really like the idea of Frank Castle interacting with other superheroes or supervillains or anything like that. And so when Marvel launched their Max imprint, their mature readers imprint, they gave Ennis a Punisher book that was set in its own continuity. And one of the cool things he did is, the book was coming out in the early 2000s, but what they did was they established that Frank Castle was a Vietnam vet and had aged in real time. So now in the book, he's like in his 60s, and he's been on this, he's been waging this like 30-year war on criminals. He's got a body count in like the thousands as a result of that. And, completely divorced from any of the superhero stuff. There were no superhero characters in it. You had Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D., but those were more akin to his the Fury work stuff he did for Max as well, which was like this very Cold War type of thing. Shield wasn't the, you know, the Jim Steranko, Kirby super spy organization. It was very much like just like another name for the CIA.
Yeah,
so very
Black Ops kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So Nick Fury appeared a few times.
Is there a scene in Punisher Max where he pushes someone slowly through a skyscraper window and then they just fall? That was it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely read that. It left an impression. Yeah, it was really good.
One of the cool things he did in that, and you can see that Unknown Soldier is almost like a precursor to what he would to the type of style he would use for Punisher Max, is because just like in that, the Unknown Soldier isn't really a character in the story. He's more of like a force of nature who kind of is floating around. And
he's not a young man either. He's not a young man either,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Ennis took a very similar tack with Punisher. Like, you know, most of the heavy character stuff was with these supporting characters, and you'd follow them through the stories. You'd see how they change. Whereas Frank, he stays pretty much the same all around.
Yeah, he's static.
And with the Punisher, you know, if you look at some of the stuff from like the 90s, there's a very real risk you have of going into right-wing power fantasies with that, like, you know, the Chuck Dixon stuff or stuff like that. But Ennis used it, and Ennis kind of flipped the script, and he used it as a way of criticizing things like, you know, hypermasculinity, U.S. foreign policy, the policing in America, all this kind of stuff, police brutality, police corruption, all this kind of stuff was fertile grounds for criticism that Ennis played with, and you see a lot of that in this series too.
One thing, like you said, the Unknown Soldier doesn't even really appear in the present until the end, and it kind of reminded me of I once went to a Trek convention and saw Ricardo Montalban speak, and he was like, what attracted him to playing Khan again in Star Trek II was the entirety of the movie, everybody's talking about Khan, even if he's not on screen. So the build up to him showing up at the end is like the payoff and everything, you know, even when he's not on screen, everybody's talking about him. And there's a great build up because, like you said, he goes. So Clyde goes through a succession of people who have witnessed the soldier in some capacity through his career and stuff. And the stuff he does is like, the one is like they're in Vietnam, and the guy they want to slaughter a village or something, and the guys refuse to do it. The Green Berets or something refuse to do it, and he's like, you got to get General Westmoreland in here to do it, to order this if I'm going to do it. And so General Westmoreland shows up, and it's the Unknown Soldier, you know, dressed as Westmoreland and stuff. And, he starts a civil war in Iran, like he forces a civil war in Iran. He slaughters a hospital full of Sandinistas or something with an M60. He's unquestioning of his orders. And one thing is kind of cool. The establishing thing with Agent Clyde in the beginning is he's a Green Beret and he's a combat vet and he's awesome, you know. And he gets into some kind of I forget where they are. They're in Grenada or something like that, and he's being debriefed from his mission.
Right.
And he was supposed to eliminate all like witnesses, and he let a couple of 10-year-old kids go. And they're like, well, you were supposed to eliminate everybody. And he's like, well, my orders included, you know, killing 10-year-old children. You should have been specific, he says, or something.
Yeah. That was a great line. He says, you know, both of those witnesses were under the age of 10, and they're like, well, you still had, and he's like, well, and he says it in a very like business-like way. He's like, I respectfully request that the next time you want me to murder children, you put that in you make that a statement in the orders or something like that. Yeah.
And then it cuts, and then they look at each other and they're like, oh, this asshole, you know, or whatever. And then it cuts to Clyde running a desk, you know, and he's in the non-combat. They punished him, you know, they took him off Wet Works or whatever, and he's now, you know, a CIA desk guy, like Robert Redford in 3 Days of Condor. You know, he's just with a bunch of non-combatants, and they kind of rib him all the time, not knowing that he's this violent guy and everything. He's kind of a Boy Scout to them and stuff. He's very much like a Steve Rogers, Captain America, idealistic kind of guy and stuff.
Well, that's too, and that goes to like what I was saying about the criticism of hypermasculinity, because you look at this guy and he's not at all like that, you know,
he's not jacked.
He's not jacked up. He's not this, typical stereotypical vision of what a soldier is or anything like that. Like he's this lean guy. He's very soft spoken and he's, very sensitive.
Go to parties. Yeah. Go to parties. Yeah. Everybody ribs him and stuff. And then, he's going through his list and he goes back to his apartment, and this woman in the office, one of the other agents, has kind of taken a shine to him, and she shows up to invite him to some party or something. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of he's kind of naive with women, and he's very like kind of charmed and stuff immediately by her, by this smile that she gives him, and the flirting and back and forth. Mm-hmm. And unbeknownst to him, this Booth figure has like told they introduced the character Screwball, who's this psychotic female assassin that works for the CIA. Mm-hmm. And put the frighteners on Clyde. He's getting too close to something. That's what they say. Put the frighteners on. Just the frighteners, Screwball, because when they establish, there's a great establishing shot of Screwball. She's on a rooftop looking at children and like old people in the park through the scope of a rifle because she's bored. It's like that's how crazy and murderous she is and stuff. And so she's like, okay, just the frighteners. And the first issue ends with she's going to put a bullet in the kitchen wall or the door or something to scare him. And what's the female character's name?
Wallace. Rebecca Wallace.
Wallace comes in with a coffee, and Screwball didn't know she was there, and he kills Wallace. She kills Wallace. Mm-hmm. And that puts Clyde in this obsessive. It irons him to this quest to find out what's going on and who would kill this woman that was so kind to him and stuff. And in Garth Ennis fashion, like in Preacher and stuff, she remains in the comic even though she's dead. She's an imaginary character in his head that sits with him and accompanies him and allows him to kind of have interaction. Otherwise, it'd be just him wandering around by himself. So he's speaking to this idealized version of her, and she kind of keeps ribbing him on it too. Like, why am I your ideal woman? All I did was smile at you. You don't even know my middle name and all this kind of stuff. And he's having this crazy back and forth the whole time. And it's not all in his head, because at one point, the other people in the office see him talking to her and stuff. Mm-hmm. So he's a little bent. There's a little bit, maybe the combat, I don't know. There's something off about Clyde too, which is cool. He's a flawed character. And go ahead.
No, I was just gonna move on to something else and talk a little bit about the fourth issue, and just like how the unknown soldier, he's such a perfect representation of that American exceptionalism. Yeah. I mean, this whole idea of like, and that's really how America felt at the end of World War II, right? Well, look at what we stopped, and we're the bulwark
against the world.
We're the bulwark against totalitarianism, against fascism, and all this. And to do that, we have to be willing to go to the same lengths as the fascists and the authoritarians, basically.
Elbow deep in the dark, whatever he says at one point. He has a great line about being elbow deep in blood and all this. And
he even says, looking up this quote here in that last issue, that brilliant last issue. But here we go. I got it right here. The war that I spoke of continues even now. The enemy has not left us. America's obligation to do what is right does not end because her masters flirt with devils. There must be someone to accept that obligation, to hold it as a clear, untarnished truth. There must be a soldier. And Clyde asks him, who are the enemy? And the soldier says, those who oppose the American will. The crimes I spoke of, the genocide I witnessed in the camps, ensured it would be so. Ultimately, we are always right, and everything we do is right. And it's like, it's so fucked up when you think about it, right? That whole idea.
It's a prevalent thought among a lot of Americans. Yeah, like anything we do is right. Torture, that's okay. It comes out and they're like, well, I mean, you got to do what you got to do and stuff. Especially in post 9/11.
Yes, exactly. But even before that too, I mean, after the war, we gave all these Nazis and Japanese war criminals. Operation Paperclip. Yeah, yeah. I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who ran Unit 731 in Japan, in Manchuria, which was, some of the most brutal human rights violations of all time. I mean, made Mengele look like, Mother Teresa. And that guy got like a cushy retirement in America in exchange for all his research. And just like all this, and then, Vietnam War, obviously, with the My Lai massacre and the Tet offensive, and then, all the fucking shit Reagan got up to, and all the shit that the Dulles brothers were responsible of throughout the Cold War.
Yeah, Oliver North and everything.
Oliver North, yeah. I mean, even up until supposed progressive presidents like Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter got their hands dirty too. So I mean,
and the Guantanamo Bay and all this, everything was everything was whatever we do to get the bad guys is okay.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And Clyde has a great response to that. You justify regimes every bit as bad as the ones you fight against. You want me to do your work even though you no longer believe in it yourself. You would have concealed your loss of faith in what you fight for, and you expect me to carry on as if I'd never learned the truth. Sir, you are not an American soldier. I deny your legacy, and I will not let you wash the blood off your hands onto mine. Because the soldier completely misreads Clyde. Because and it's all right there. Clyde can never accept being the soldier. Okay, so the reveal is that the soldier is the guy that gave him these names because he wanted Clyde to learn about him and everything he's done, and then accept his mantle. And if the soldier had been aware of Clyde's opening scene, where he says, "I'm not going to kill kids," he should know Clyde is never going to accept this mantle, because it's like Clyde is more of a Captain America, and it's kind of like Clyde and Screwball are both facets of the unknown soldier. Like the unknown soldier is this swelling patriot, and he has all this love for America and idealism and naivety. And yet he's also a complete psychopath that'll kill and slaughter civilians and all kinds of stuff, and won't question orders the way Screwball does. But Clyde will question orders and will step back and say, this is wrong,
Yeah, and also, the fact that they even use Screwball in the first place just shows like the lengths that the American government is willing to go to. Like I'm almost disappointed that this only got 4 issues. I know it was a miniseries, but it was, and like those last words, you've got the unknown soldier there, right? He's an American soldier known but to God, and he rests in honor and glory. And then it's just like the silent panel and this final splash page of him standing under the flag at the flagpole, staring out over Arlington Cemetery,
all the graves,
and just says, "God damn me."
God damn it, yeah. It's so good. It's such a great moralistic it's such a great it's not really an action comic. I mean, there is like a couple of action sequences. There's one big one where it's crazy, where it was reminding me of the Punisher, where he's like him and Booth, his handler, the guy that he recruits, the Marine, are getting just waves and waves and waves of Sandinistas coming at them or something in revenge for the hospital that he slaughtered. And it says something like he laces the descriptions, the writing is so great. Like he laces the jungle with like grenades and bullets, and he's picking up fallen weapons and emptying them. And like the last 2 guys, they fight for 2 hours or something, and the last 2 guys he beats to death with his rifle butt or something. Like he just does not go down. He's like got multiple wounds and all this. And so there is an action sequence, but most of it is just a lot of is philosophical, really. It's just clash of ideologies and stuff.
Right. There's also there's a great car chase sequence too in one of the issues as well that's really well done too. But otherwise, it's very, very light on action, and yet
the last issue,
the story never drags.
The climactic issue is 2 guys sitting in a rainy grave just talking to each other. That's the whole issue. And
there's the only action beat comes at the very end when Clyde puts the gun to his head, and that's it.
Yeah. You don't even see the coroner comes and says what happens. Like he just dumps all the bodies together in the grave with the phosphorus grenades, and they can't identify anybody and stuff. Yeah, Clyde would rather die than like join this. Oh, so why the soldier is trying to recruit a replacement is because, you know, you mentioned Operation Paperclip and stuff. The soldier finds out that the general that always was his handler and gave him all his orders, and he worshiped this guy and everything, is like this great, you know, American soldier and everything, gives him a deathbed confession that they had a Operation Paperclip kind of situation where these Nazis came to them in Switzerland or something and said, you know, if you can get us passage to Argentina and you set us up there, you can like we have all this research we've done, genetic research and spacecraft and all this wild like high technology that we just don't have the resources to create, but America does. And if you guys will give us this and give us leave to produce it for you and stuff, all we're asking is for asylum, basically. And and they're like, we have one more request, and they pass a picture of Adolf Hitler across the desk, and they're like, he comes with us, and the soldier is just, it's his second epiphany, you know, of his whole career and everything. The first was when he saw all these bodies and decided the Nazis are ultimate evil, and he's gonna do whatever it take, whatever America asks him, he's ready to do. That's his first epiphany, and his second epiphany is this Operation Winter Thor thing, where he's like, we're willing to deal with the ultimate evil if it suits our ends and stuff. And it's a total betrayal to him, and he smothers the general in his bed and everything, and then he's just like, I can't do this anymore. They betrayed my personal war, he says at one point. And
this great quote here, I got it from him. I remember staring into hell. I heard myself say yes, saw my hand shake the Nazis. A part of me would not acknowledge the nightmare of what I was doing. That's how you make a pact with Satan. But we'd been greedy. We hadn't bothered telling London about the Winter Thor meeting. If we had, the RAF would have canceled all patrols along the Swiss-German border that night. If not for a night fighter's chance encounter, a clandestine Fourth Reich would have been established in Colombia under Adolf Hitler with the full backing of the USA.
Yeah, great. So the Hitler and the high command are going. They're going shipped, and they die just because a chance like Spitfire or something happens to shoot them down. It's great. Yeah, it's really great. And it just drives the soldier wild, you know, like he's like wild with the betrayal of it and everything. And there's talk of like the other agent, he had another guy in mind, Anderson, who's already followed Clyde's path and everything. And he didn't want Anderson to find out about Winter Thor. And then Anderson did. So the soldier killed him because he was like, you can't be the soldier and know about this. Like that's his realization at the time.
This other great quote, this is from Clyde when he's and basically saying what we've been saying here too. If you're saying you think it's okay to get cozy with the little monsters to help us fight the big ones, you're not telling me anything original. The U.S. has propped up dozens of thieves and butchers over the years, but evil's always evil. Trying to justify it, that's pointless. That's naive.
Yeah, he's the guy that can step back and say, this is not, you know, you can be a soldier and you can take orders, but once the orders are unjust, you have the right to refuse, you know.
And it reminds me of. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say he could not make that moralistic choice and everything in his whole career, and then he realizes at the end, you know, I've been doing evil this whole time. I've been working for evil this whole time and everything.
Yeah, that and you know, you mentioned Captain America a few times, and that scene makes me think too of the scene in The Winter Soldier when him and Fury are in the Triskelion. They go down, they look at the new helicarriers, and Fury, you know, and you know, Cap's criticizing it, and then Fury, you know, calls him on it. He's like, I've read those SAS files, right? Greatest Generation. You guys did some, you know, got up to some shit yourselves. And Steve said, yeah, we compromised in ways that made us not sleep so well. But, you know, we did it so that people could be free. And he's like, this isn't freedom. This is fear, right? He draws a line in the sand, even though he's willing to admit that maybe we compromised, maybe we did some things we shouldn't have, but we had a line that we would not cross. And now you're crossing that line.
Yeah. And the unknown soldier is the anti-Captain America. He's like the dark Captain America. There's a great line where Clyde asks, is he some kind of superhuman assassin or something? And I think it's Booth says, no, he's 75 years old and he's in ultimate physical condition. He's just a man though. And so he's basically Captain America, but yeah, he's just a dark version, a wet works version of Captain America. It's really cool. He's the Red Skull almost, but just working for America.
There was another series that came out in the right before the New 52, I think it was, like in 2000, the late aughts is when it came out.
Okay.
And that was set in Uganda. And I am curious to see what this was like because it ran for about
There was an
uh
African unknown soldier. Yeah, I did read something about that. Right? He's African or something, like an African soldier.
looks like it, yeah. Um Yeah, Moses Luanga is a pacifist, a doctor trapped by the fighting until a mysterious voice tells him to fix everything by slaughtering those responsible. And a bandage-wrapped warrior returns from the past with advice. So I'm
Mm.
guessing it's yeah, it's a new version of the Unknown Soldier with like, but like has this the other one, the old one appears in some way.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it's available in trade, at least not one that's currently in active print, because all I see on Amazon are just the actual issues themselves.
Hmm.
But the whole thing is like $10, so it might be worth picking up. I've heard it's pretty
Yeah.
good. I haven't read it though.
No, I'd like to check it out. I mean, this made me. This didn't make me go back and find the old unknown soldiers. To be honest, like I just thought
Mhm.
this was such a great standalone series. I couldn't imagine the old unknown soldiers lived up to it. Honestly.
I wonder
But
about
yeah,
the Jim Owsley, now Christopher Priest stuff because
it's good.
he did some amazing stuff in Black Panther, and
Black Panther.
from
Yeah.
what I read of that description, it sounds like it was more his. I mean, his knowing Priest, his philosophies, his type of that's more in line with Ennis anyway. So I don't think it was a very rah rah pro American war type of thing like the original one must have been.
Hmm. Well, that might be worth checking out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to try and check that one out myself too. Um, but yeah, I mean, like this was such a nice surprise because I picked this up on there was a big DC sale at I think it was like the end of the year is when I picked this up, and it was up there. It was like $2 when I picked it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, Garth Ennis. I remember seeing ads for it in Wizard way back in the day,
Hmm.
um, and just never picking it up or anything. And knowing that it's by Ennis, I'm like, okay, yeah, let's $2. What the hell? I'll give it a try. I haven't read any Ennis stuff in a while, and it really brought me back to why I love him as a creator and just like
Hmm.
and like how much his because I think with Ennis very much I think people could look at him and get kind of the same feeling you get from someone like Mark Miller where it's just like, oh, it's just all um
You know what you're getting. Yeah.
right, it's just all ultra violent and it's just like trying to be edgy for the sake of edginess. And there is that, but there's a lot more under the surface of that, right? Like
There
if you're reading
usually
it because
is.
you
Yeah,
want
for him.
right. Like you mentioned Preacher. I think that's a perfect example. Like, yeah, there's a lot of like the edgy humor and stuff like that in Preacher, which it's infantile and it's funny
It
too, and
can
it
be.
makes me
Yeah.
laugh. But it's also got some really profound questions about organized
God
religion,
and yeah.
God, American society, American masculinity, all that kind of stuff is underlying the surface, and it's covered up with this thin veneer of gore and dick and fart jokes.
Yeah. 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 No dick and fart jokes in Unknown Soldier though. Not really.
No, this is straight serious. Like this is probably one of his most serious, probably the most serious thing he's done
Next to
that I
Punisher
can think of too.
Max.
Next to Punisher Max. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. Good
Okay, and
stuff. Great comic.
is there anything else you wanted to say about Unknown Soldier? Anything you think we haven't covered yet?
I don't think so. Just pick it up if you have the opportunity. I recommend, as Ferris Bueller says, if it's so choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to end it. Yeah, it's such a good read, and it's all in this. It's a short read, right? It's just a 4 issue limited series, all
Yeah.
collected in this one book. It's available on Comixology, and so it's in both print and digital, and it'll probably pop up again uh in a sale fairly soon. Like they have these sales like 2 or 3 times a year, so I definitely
Hmm.
recommend picking it up.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Oh, I just found out. Looks like that last soldier, the one that was from the late aughts, that was actually it looks like it went for 25 issues actually.
Oh wow. Okay.
But only the first
Maxi
6 are listed
series.
on Amazon. Yeah, so well, it was supposed to be an ongoing, then it got canceled.
Oh, so
Um,
does it have an ending or is it just cut
it
short? You think?
I think he did get enough time to wrap it up. And in fact, Ennis wrote the pull quote for the first issue. I see this right here. He wrote a story with teeth, unafraid to confront some horrific truths about the world we live in. Joshua Dysart's Unknown Soldier is a comic that genuinely matters.
Cool. Well, maybe eBay or something.
Yeah, yeah, definitely recommend trying to find those issues if you can. Again, I'm curious to check out the late '80s stuff too. I'm gonna see about tracking that down as well.
Yeah.
But Ed, thanks so much for coming on. And I was really excited when you picked this one because I had read this recently, and after I read it, I was thinking, I'm like, man, I should probably do an episode on this book. So you and me were very much had the same things in mind when we were thinking about this. So thank
Yeah,
you
I'm glad.
for picking this.
Maybe we can do a follow-up if we both read the other ones. I'll
Yeah,
come back.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. But until then, why don't you tell people where they can find your stuff?
You can find excerpts from my work on my Delirium Tremens blog. It's www.emerdelac.com or .wordpress.com. Or find me on Facebook. Just look up my name. I'm the only Erdelac on Amazon. Well, I used to be able to say that. I actually have a cousin that does gluten-free cookbooks. So it's not me. I do the other ones.
So if it's the gluten-free cookbooks, then it's definitely not you then.
It's
Okay.
not me. Yeah, you found the wrong Erdelac.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun. And if you if you're listening to this, if you haven't heard, keep a lookout on the feed for when Ed comes on. And we talked about the Rocketeer, had a good conversation with that.
Yeah.
And that does it for this episode of the Superhero Cinephiles Book Club. Thank you so much for your support and your subscriptions. Again, if you have anything you'd like me to focus on, you'd like me to review, please leave me a comment, send me an email, superherocinephiles@gmail.com. Or if you have any comments or questions, just please feel free to let me know. I'll be happy to read them on the air. That does it for now. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.